Today I want to go over a basic lighting setup in Mineray that will allow you to import models into Maya, and you'll be able to get nice soft shadows and get a basic view of your models. Okay, so let's start out, and we'll work with polygons, and we'll start out by dragging out a polygon to establish our ground plane, and we'll click and make that active, and we'll move that to the center of our world space. Okay, and we're going to assign a basic material, and we'll use a basic Lambert material. And actually, let's change that to blend, because we'll want to have reflections on that. Okay, so that surface will actually be reflective. And now what we want to do, we want to go in, let's grab a sphere, and we're going to create our light dome. Okay, and I want to switch very briefly to the top window. I'm going to move this over here to the center, and we'll scale that down a tad so that that dome sits there. And let's drag both of these and take those over to the center of our world coordinates. Okay. Now let's zoom in and change my shading level here. Note that there, we need to drop this down. There. Let's maximize this window. And let's go inside. Okay. Now, what I want to do, I want to click on my dome here to activate that. And I want to come over to my Lambert node. And what I want to do, I want to paint the dome white. So we'll change the color to white. And we want to increase the incandescence of our dome. We want to increase the incandescence of the dome. Okay. And now let's go into the polysphere node, or polyshape node, and we're going to look at our two menus, our render stats menu and our Mineray menu. We want our dome to be, we don't need it to be visible in transparency. We don't need it to transmit transparency or trace reflections or to transmit refractions. We just need a final gather cast and a final gather receive. That's what's going to make it, that's what's going to make the object irradiate. It's going to help us provide light. We want it to be visible in reflections, visible in refractions, and we want it to cast shadows, but it doesn't need to receive shadows or to have any smooth shading. So we'll turn those tabs off. Okay. Now, let's add an object. We'll choose another object just so that we can see how well that's worked. And I'm going to go into this torus node and I'm going to adjust this slightly. Okay. And let's pull this up. We don't want that to be a radiated object, so let's change the assign a new material to that, and we'll just assign a basic MIA material to that, and we'll use one of the presets, and we'll just go with a for right now we can go with a matte plastic right now. Okay. And so now let's scale this a little bit. Let's scale it down a little bit, slightly. I'm going to adjust my world here. And now I need to go and set up my render settings. Go up here to the display render settings window here in Mental Ray, and in that window you want to make sure that your render is set to Mental Ray. Come to your Commons tab, scroll all the way to the bottom, and on the bottom under render options, it's very important that you disable your default lighting, because you don't want that to operate. The lighting is going to be provided by the dome here, as you see. Okay. Next thing you know, you want to go over to quality, and for right now, under your quality tab, you want to use you want to use Preview Final Gather as your basic quality tab. Okay. And that should do it for right now. If you want to, you can go under indirect lighting, and you can add a little ambient occlusion, which will provide shadows on your object, shadows that are occluded by on your object areas that are occluded by the light, and it's a really nice effect. You should make a habit of using that when you're using Mental Ray. It's one of the nicest features of the renderer. Okay, so now let's take a quick photo, take a quick snapshot. Of our scene. So, as you can see now, we have our object nicely shaded with nice soft shadows, and we're picking up the reflections on the surface of our base because of the blend. But as you can see here, we can sort of see, because the dome is invisible, we have this dark area back here. Let me show you how to go about fixing that. What we need to do is that we can go into our outliner and bring up our perspective camera. Okay, and what we want to do, we want to get into the environmental node of our perspective camera and change that background to white. Okay, so we change that background to white, and let's also take our base here, polyplane base, and go into that blend node. Let's change that color to white also. See how this works. Okay, so make that white. So we got a nice bright white environment, and now let's render this. Beautiful. That's doing exactly what it's supposed to. We got a nice white environment, and we've got this nice soft cast shadow that we see here, and we got our reflections on the base. And that's a really nice, simple render setup that you can use to take to create images of your models in progress. And they also have some use for creating entourage or background images that you can then composite in some of your fully rendered elements within your architectural visualizations. And that's a very basic lighting setup using Mental Ray and Incandescence in Mental Ray to set up a nice soft shadowed render.